Why Europe doesn't build skyscrapers. Yeah, when I think about it, Europe, skyscrapers, like London, it's really the only city I can think of that has skyscrapers. And no, yeah, that's it. This came across my feed and it sparked my interest. I've never really thought about this topic before, so why not hop in and do a video on it? If it's your first time here, my name is Jacob. Thanks for stopping in. Hit that like button and let's get going.
Why aren't there many skyscrapers in Europe? Despite being one of the most developed, densely populated and economically prosperous continents,
That's beautiful.
Europe has surprisingly few skyscrapers, particularly when compared to Asia and North America. Of the 218 skyscrapers constructed on the continent to date, 66% of them are located in just 5 cities.
200. Yeah, I know he's going to say London right now. Ugh, gosh, I mean, we've got to have 200 skyscrapers just in Nashville. Easily. They're putting a new one up like every other month, seems like.
Paris, Frankfurt, Moscow, and Istanbul.
Paris.
So why?
Wait, is Moscow located in Europe? I know Russia is split in between Asia and Europe. Is Moscow on the European side? I didn't know that.
5 cities: London, Paris, Frankfurt, Moscow, and Istanbul.
Istanbul.
So why have other major European cities not embraced the skyscraper? How do they thrive without the significant inner urban space and floor areas that these clever structures provide? And is everything about to change in our increasingly urbanized world? When skyscrapers first rose to prominence in the 19th century, first in Chicago and later in New York, many European cities were already firmly established, with grand historic buildings and public spaces that left little room for large new structures. Most of Europe's cities around that time were also more evenly zoned, and were not facing the high demand for floor space in key districts that typically drives high-rise development. Additionally, as the power and influence of North America began to grow, a cultural rivalry emerged between Americans who saw Europe's class system as outdated and Europeans who saw some American ideals as eroding traditions and the European way of life. As a result, each continent became wary of adopting the other's concepts. While North America aims to become the model for a new age, Europe sought to preserve its heritage.
Kind of like that, though. I think that's what makes Europe so intriguing and like appealing for a lot of Americans who want to travel to. I know a lot of us don't actually come there and visit you guys, but you would be surprised to find out that a lot actually do want to go. It's usually just because of the cost that it takes to go there. You're going with a family of 3. You're going to spend $10,000 easily just on travel, you know, not even including stay, but just airline tickets, $2,500 a pop. So it's probably why we don't go out there, but the old aesthetic is it's attractable.
While this explains why skyscraper construction didn't initially catch on in Europe, it doesn't explain what has held the continent back since.
The war, yeah.
In the wake of the Second World War, many thought European cities would modernize and replicate the skyscrapers that were rising across North America. However, in Western Europe, where many cities lost landmark and historic structures, an overwhelming desire to restore what had been destroyed took hold. In addition, the lower population of Europe at that time meant that the demand for floor area that principally drives skyscraper construction wasn't there. As a result, modest structures replaced buildings that could not be saved or restored. Meanwhile, in Eastern Europe, the expanding Soviet Union's rebuild effort consisted largely of mid-rise repetitive structures that sought to rehouse much of the population.
Very plain. Like, I'm all for not having to have skyscrapers, but obviously they were trying to house everyone quickly, so they're putting these buildings up fast. They just, like, look so cookie cutter.
It was during this time that Europe saw its first skyscrapers begin to rise, not in response to growth and prosperity, but in an effort by the Soviets to indicate their power and influence.
Brusselization.
While
Okay.
Brussels has never constructed a true skyscraper, it is partly responsible for the lack of skyscrapers across the continent.
Really?
Without any significant zoning regulations in place, the 1960s saw many buildings in the city demolished to make way for large, modern structures that had little regard for architectural or cultural value. Recognising the damage this indiscriminate redevelopment was doing to the city, many prominent figures and architects coined the term Brusselization and lobbied to introduce new planning laws. These regulations significantly limited the scale of new buildings and required historic facades to be restored and incorporated into new developments, preserving the cultural fabric of the city. The row in Brussels led to a general dislike for modern buildings across Europe, with many seeing them as bland or soulless.
Yeah, I mean, this compared to some of the other architecture that they were showing earlier, this does look very bland. It's just glass, straight lines. Yeah.
In response, numerous cities adopted similar regulations and set aside controlled districts, like Paris's La Défense, to keep high-rise development away from historic centres. By the start of the 21st century, attitudes around tall buildings were softening across the continent, as architectural trends moved away from box-like
That looks cool. That's pretty awesome. That's good architecture.
structures towards more unique designs, and as the world became increasingly globalized. Since the early 2000s, major financial centres like London, Paris, Moscow, Istanbul and Frankfurt have seen several skyscrapers rise, as demand for commercial space in their centres has increased. By contrast, smaller European cities that have been experiencing more modest growth have turned their focus to the environment and improving living standards.
What? Oh my gosh, look at this. This is amazing. That's in Milan. Let me know if any of you guys have ever been in this building before. It looks like it's residential, right? Is it residential?
Citizens.
It's
In
gotta
recent
be.
years, urban areas in Scandinavia and Central Europe have consistently ranked among the highest in the world for sustainability, happiness and well-being, while maintaining importance within their national economies. However, skyscraper construction in the cities of today is no longer driven purely by economic growth or the need for commercial office space. With 60% of the global human population set to be living in urban areas by 2030, residential
60%?
skyscrapers are now rising in prominence, particularly across Asia and North America. As many traditional rural-based industries become automated, millions are migrating into cities and major urban areas, driving significant demand for residential space that is often met with high-rise structures.
Oh man, I don't know if I could live in a city, especially with like 3 kids. I mean, I might be able to. It would be a hard sell to my wife. I can say that much. She loves the open area, the suburbs, quick drive over to the kids' school or anywhere we need to go. There's no traffic really, but living in a city has always been very appealing to me.
Europe is not immune to this phenomenon, particularly in such
Look at that thing. Holy cow. I don't think I've ever seen this before. That's wild.
heavily globalized world, and with the continent's desire to keep up with the progress and economic growth of China and the US. As such, Europe could witness a skyscraper boom in the decades ahead.
So it's coming, maybe.
However, with entire urban centres now being declared historically significant, and with the desire to retain as much culture and architecture as possible rightly holding strong up to the present day, the unique challenge facing future skyscraper construction in Europe is all to do with the past.
So, a couple of things. First of all, isn't this the building that they've been working on for, I may be way off, like hundreds of years or something like that? Is that this building? I know there is one. I don't know if it's in Barcelona. But yeah, what he's saying, what they're talking about, like skyscrapers may be coming to Europe. Yeah, I would not want to get rid of any of the, like the old buildings to put in skyscrapers. So you kind of have to like build outside of the main city and like make that the new hub of the city, I guess? I don't know. I don't know how they would do it.
If you enjoyed this video and would like to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, subscribe to the B1M.
That was pretty cool. All right, I learn something new every day. I feel like when I do go to Europe, I am going to visit London, and I'll probably check out, obviously, some of the skyscrapers while I'm there, but I'm not excited to see a skyscraper in Europe. I mean, if they're there, it's cool, but that's not really what I would ever go for. All right, that was super interesting. I appreciate you guys stopping in, and sorry I was a little under the weather today, so still wanted to kind of check something out, though, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.